Hi, and welcome back to the Austin Sew Along. Today is day 7, and we'll be assembling and attaching the View A skirt. If you're making View B, you can skip this lesson. For this lesson, we're going to need our bodice, our skirt fronts, and our skirt backs. We can set the bodice aside for now. Alright, so here are our two skirt fronts, and you can see I have finished my seam allowance. I serged it, same as I did for the bodice. And again, that is because once it's sewn together, we're going to press the seam allowance open and top stitch, and it'll be easier to finish the seam allowance now instead of when it's already sewn into a seam. Now we're going to take our two skirts and we're going to lay them right sides together. So the right sides are facing each other. Then there's a single notch right here. I'm gonna just pin that. And the single notch indicates the front skirt. And then we'll pin the bottom here. Now we're going to head over to our machine and we're just going to sew this seam line. Now we're just going to sew the length of the seam with our 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now we're just going to press our seam allowance open. Next, we'll head over to our machine and we're going to edge stitch on both sides of the seam line and then top stitch, exactly how we did for the bodice. That way when we sew the skirt to the bodice, all the stitching lines will match. Alright, so I have my edge stitch foot on, placing the guide right in the seam line, move my needle and sew. And the other side. So I have my 1/4 inch foot back on my machine, and now I'm going to top stitch a 1/4 inch away from our previous stitching line. And then the other side. All right, our front skirt is now assembled. You're going to repeat these steps for the back. Now we need to attach the waistline of the skirt to the waistline of the bodice. All right, so we're going to lay our front bodice out with the right side facing up. We're going to take our front skirt and lay it over top with the right side facing down. The first thing I'm going to do is align my center fronts. There we go. Now we're going to take the side seams and pin. And then again, centers out. So centered, centered, and then this side. Now we're going to head over to our machine and sew this seam line. And again, this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm just going to finish the seam allowance by serging it. Now we're going to press our seam allowance towards the bodice. Now our final step will be to edge stitch along the seam line, anchoring the seam allowance to the bodice. So I have my edge stitch put on again. So we now have our back, bodice and skirt attached, and our front as well. So that is it for today's lesson. We have assembled and attached the View A skirt. Our next lesson will be assembling and attaching the View B pockets. So if you are making View A, you're free to skip that one. And I will see you back here next time for that. Bye-bye.